You should be good. You have to request again, Karen.
I don't have control.
Donna, request control again, please.
You did.
Options.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to our B2c marketing webinar on branding essentials. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Donna Ennis, and I am the Director of Diversity Engagement and Program Development for the Georgia Tech Enterprise Innovation Institute. And in that role, I also lead our Georgia Minority Business Development Agency, or MBDA Business Center. Just a little bit about the Minority Business Development Agency, or it is the only federal agency dedicated to growing and strengthening minority business enterprises, or MBE. The agency MBDA is a part of the Department of Commerce and has been around since 1968 on an executive order established by then President Richard Nixon. As you can see here, our mission is really to grow and strengthen minority-owned businesses with a vision of economic prosperity for all Americans. We are really passionate about what we do and how we serve our minority business community, and we look forward to working with you and talking with you today. Just a bit of history. I'm really excited about this. When President Biden signed the infrastructure bill in 2021, a little known fact in that bill that there was the Minority Business Development Act of 2021. And that actually made the MBDA a permanent agency with the Department of Commerce, with its own undersecretary and full and new budget control, among other establishment of new programs. Up until this point, we have been existing, as I said earlier, and under executive order with then President Nixon. So we're really excited that the MBDA is now a permanent agency. We are the Georgia MBDA Business Center, operated by Georgia Tech. So I'm actually with Georgia Tech. We're all with Georgia Tech, except our guests here for today. But we really are excited to have MBDA as a permanent agency. Just really quickly, I'm going to blow through these slides. MBDA operates a number of programs. This is our MBDA Business Center program. We have, as you can see, 35 business centers in just about every state. We also have specialty centers in advanced manufacturing, export, and a federal procurement center. So if you are interested in doing business with the federal government, we do have at Georgia Tech a Georgia Tech Procurement Assistance Center, GTPAC, but we also have a federal procurement, MBDA Federal Procurement Center that can help you as well. And then these are other grant programs that MBDA has invested in, and we actually have one called the Southeast MBDA Business Growth Hub, where we're connecting the ecosystems, the entrepreneurial ecosystems in 8 states. So we're really excited that MBDA is making these types of investments in our community. I just wanted to show you that, through MBDA, we really are part of a national ecosystem, really dedicated to growing and strengthening small and minority businesses. These logos actually represents many different parts of the ecosystem, from universities to cities to states, private companies, corporations, nonprofit organizations, all working on behalf of our minority and small business community. And then on a more local level, this is to show that those same logos that you saw at a national level also operate on the city, state, and regional level as well. So how do we help? How do we help you? Access to markets and opportunities, helping you source and secure capital, whether it's grants, loans, investment capital, helping you to build your capacity, and providing resource and expertise. These are the 4 major pillars of how we assist our companies. Today, I would say that we're operating in the building your capacity area. So we're happy to have here today Creative Mischief that's going to help you learn a lot about branding and marketing. And then I just want to thank our team who helps us get the work done. As you can see, Karen Murphy, who is with Creative Mischief, is one of our major contributors to the team. And I just wanted to say that, you know, we have a really good, strong team of experienced individuals that can serve your needs. And thank you to our sponsors, Comcast, EPCO, and Train, who have been actually supporting the center for, in some cases, more than 5 years. So this program today is brought to you by the Navigating and Adjusting to the New Normal program, which was funded by MBDA through the Coronavirus Response and Relief Act. We're really here to help you access capital to, as it says here, increase profitability and scale your business. But we're really focused on helping to help our companies move through the pandemic. And we know that many companies are still working on building their companies and, really just not just surviving, but we really want you to thrive through this pandemic. So our NANN program is really here to bring you resources to help you move through this challenging times, or what I should say would have been challenging times. And as you can see, we have a number of organizations that have partnered with us to help bring you the resources that you need to grow your business. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to Creative Mischief, our team members and partners, to talk with you about B2c Branding Essentials. Thank you for joining us today.
Sorry about that, I was muted. Thank you, Donna, and thanks to the Georgia MBDA Business Center for having us here today and for making events like this possible. And thank you all for being here as well. This is going to be a fun time. We're going to be looking at B2c Branding Essentials. Last week, or actually it's been a couple of weeks now, we did our B2b Branding Essentials. And this week, we're going to be covering some of the same ground with a slight variation that helps specifically businesses who are going direct to consumer. So we're looking forward to helping you put your brand to work for you, and just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. Many of you have been through this before, but to ask a question, there's a little Q&A icon at the bottom of your Zoom, and you should be able to click on that icon and type in your questions. We'll be saving the questions and the answers to for the end of the presentation, where we'll be having our Q&A session, and we'll be talking through those and saving the time at the end of the session. One other thing that we're doing today a little differently, we're going to attempt to put together some polls, or to put some polls into our presentation today. So you may see a poll pop up on your screen asking you a question, and if you'll if you'll go ahead and answer that, we'll give you a heads up as we're trying to do that, and hopefully that'll work out, and we can talk about the answers as we go. If they're a little more complex, we'll talk about them at the end of the session. So, all right, so today we're going to be discussing how to put your brand to work for you. We know that good branding can mean the difference between success and failure, and provide you with all sorts of benefits, from increasing the value of your company to attracting employees and growing your customers. So given that we're hit with 5,000 ads daily, the question is, how are you going to be distinguishing yourself from all the noise? And that's what we're going to work through today, to try to help you, give you some pointers and tips on how you can do that. A little bit about us, Isham. You want to?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Isham Kalasetti. I'm the founder of Creative Mischief, and Karen is Chief Marketing Officer, and my wife. So we've been doing this together for the last 12, 13 years. But then our careers in marketing and branding go back to the early 90s. So during the time, we've done a lot of branding projects and marketing, and have won a bunch of awards. Some of those are here. We definitely like the challenge that branding and marketing bring, and helping people kind of communicate to their audiences and get exposure. So.
Okay, so this is a little interesting fact. 77% of consumers purchase items because of the brand name, and 82% of investors prioritize brand recognition. So we've established that a strong brand position leads to great things like, increased customer loyalty, higher brand recognition, improved efficiencies for your marketing. And we also know that brands retain, well, this is also an interesting fact, that brands that retain consistent messaging and identity see a 33% increase in revenue. So that's a pretty good motivation for having that brand consistency. But the question is, what is brand and what makes it successful? Branding is really your promise to your customer. It tells them what they can expect from your products and services, and it differentiates your offering from your competitors. Your brand is really derived from who you are, who you want to be, and who people perceive you to be. So it's also good to understand that your brand is more than your logo, right? A brand is an experience that is really something that happens at every touch point that your customer has with your business. So that can be from word of mouth to somebody working for you, your packaging, customer experience, customer service, all sorts of things. So this is a really good graphic because it shows sort of the all of the touch points that could possibly happen with your brand. So why it's so important to know, what your brand is.
Yeah, and understanding these touch points, and we've seen that as people start to use social media to market, if they're not responsive on social media, it makes people think that they're not responsive as a company, and it impacts your brand. Like little things, it is every touch point, every experience someone tries to have with your brand really does impact their perception of who you are as a company.
So the question is, what are the elements of a good brand? And I'm going to stop here just for a minute and go ahead and see if we could do a quick poll. And the poll we're going to be asking is, where do you find the most challenges with your branding? So hopefully you all can see this. And if you wanted to go ahead and take a moment to answer these questions, we'll give you a second before we move on. And the answers here are finding affordable creative resources, finding the time to create the branding, using branding in a consistent way, connecting with your audience, getting feedback from your audience. Put these in there because these are typically some of the greatest challenges that small businesses and really any businesses have as it relates to brand. So currently, we have about 50% of you who answered, and it looks like the number one issue at the moment is finding affordable resources, with that being tied with connecting to your audience. And then third place is finding the time to create your branding, with tied for fourth place, using branding in a consistent way and getting feedback from your audience. So go ahead and end that poll. Okay, so back to the presentation. What are the elements of good brand? The elements of a good brand are: first, establish your why; two, create value; three, define your target audience; four, create consistency; and five, build connection. So we'll be talking through each of those 5 points today, starting with establishing your why. There's a great quote here from Simon Sinek, and he is pretty much, he's got a great book out there. I think it is, I'm trying to remember the actual name of the book, but I think it might be Discovering Your Why, if I'm not mistaken. But he says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think Isham provided here one of his TED Talks that's out on YouTube. You can do a search for it, right, Isham?
Yeah, he does a great job talking about how your brain functions. And how brand actually connects with different aspects of how your mind works. So it's pretty interesting. Maybe 15, 20 minutes. It's not too horrible. So.
Right. So establishing an emotional resonance, your why it's so important, and what you need to do in order to get there. So providing a compelling ideal that your customers can connect with, people connect with why you do what you do. They really are not as interested in what you do. That kind of comes later. But what really creates those connections and makes people want to buy from you is why you do what you do. The what is usually a lot easier to come up with because we all know what we do. We don't all know why we do what we do. And that's usually the most interesting story. So as it says here, the why really has to be sorted out to strike that chord with your readers. And so we have an example of that with one of our clients. Isham.
So Genesis Innovation Academy is a private, it's a public charter for K through 12. And these public charters, they have to win parents. Parents have to choose to send their kids there. And understanding why you would pick a public charter over a public school is a big decision, and is why they started with their vision. So the way that they're trying to separate themselves from a public school is our scholars will become great men and women of intellect, purpose, and character who create legacies of generational prosperity for their families, their communities, and their world. Like, they're not trying to just get kids through the 12th grade and out into the world. They're trying to get kids to be the best that they can be. So their job is to cultivate the next generation of path-breaking innovators who maximize their gifts, pursue their passion, and lead with uncompromising discipline and integrity. So when you have a strong vision and you have a good mission and you know what you're trying to do, then it becomes a lot easier to start branding. So we took this idea of, they work with young kids and they're trying to make them into the best that they can be. So here's this kid on the left thinking about his life as an architect in the future. So we have this arc of playing in the classroom to drawing to college, and then being able to build this bridge over a bay. And the idea, the big message we've got here is greatness begins here. And they already had the purple and yellow color palette. So what we wanted to do is extend that to everything they're doing, and then have that messaging also come through of greatness and show that kind of who they're working with and kind of where they're going through the branding. So this campaign they've been using to help make sure that they get 100% class full. And when we started with them, they were K through 10, now they're K through 12. So
I think that just sums up, going back real quick, Isham, that, if you're talking about what your audience cares about, and in this case, connecting with the parents and why they care about what's going to happen with their children, it's a very emotional thing. So being able to really connect with the parents and their dreams and desires, and to state that right out, makes a big difference in how you're going to go out with your marketing, how you're going to go out with your brand. It's not focused on the school, it's focused on that child. So definitely made a big difference in uncovering their why and then moving that why through all of their marketing. I wanted to take a moment, you can advance if you want to the next, but let's go ahead and do another quick poll. And on this one, we're going to ask, do you have a logo or tagline? So if you have a moment, if you'll answer the question here. Okay, just a couple more minutes or a couple more seconds, I should say. Give you about a minute here. Looks like most of you have a logo. 60%, 27% have a logo and a tagline. 7% have a tagline only, and 7% have none of the above. So just something to note. And so sounds like people are on various stages of, creating that brand and creating that logo and who they're about. So this, the next element of brand, Isham, if you could move back just for a second.
I'm jumping ahead, I guess,
Yep.
too much.
Is creating value. And what creating value is about, if you can go to the next slide, this is, Tony Robbins, if you add value, you will become the brand. Find a way to add more value than anyone else does. So what this is about, if you want to advance this, is creating value a lot of times comes down to providing the stats and the case studies and the testimonials in order to make sure that people believe you, that they have a reason to believe what you're saying you're about, and to take you seriously. Why does it matter that you are offering your service? What do your customers get out of interacting with your brand, and why you're the superior choice? So really looking at those, what's that compelling evidence that you're better or different? In this one, we provided an example. This is a B2B example as it relates to care payment. And the reason we wanted to show this one is that care payment, they do a good job of not only kind of showing their why and what the pain points of their audience are, but also then answering that with specific value points. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that care payment is really a better idea for patient financing. And I don't know, Isham, if you wanted to talk through it, but basically they do a really good job of saying here, what are the problems? We understand there's a high cost of healthcare. Collections aren't good enough. There's unpaid balances. There's a problem here. There's a challenge. And how are we going to address that? And if you move to the next slide, you'll see that what they did was very clearly answer, what the issue, how what they're doing, what are the proof?
The value they bring.
Yeah, the value, thank you. The value they bring to the table. So 2 times financial return on current collections, 5 times better collection rate, 20% reduction in bad debt. They're really asking the questions, answering it with proof and value. And then what's nice is they tie it all back together again with really what they're about, kind of their why. Is it a better idea? Let us show you how. And I don't know, Isham worked a lot with this group as it related to kind of what they were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and they have a B2B side where they sell to hospitals, but they also have a B2C sale where they're selling to the person who needs financing for their medical. So they definitely are marketing to both audiences all the time, because they use patients to help, like they'll sign patients up within a market and then use their patient roster to help compel hospitals to use them for their collections. So their stuff is all kind of intermingled.
Okay, so the next element of your brand is defining your target audience. And I have another poll. And this one is, have you created audience personas for your business? Okay, so far, 100% no. Now it's changing a little bit. Okay, we'll just give you.
I guess we probably should have had a third question is not sure what an audience persona is.
Yeah, what is an audience persona? We'll talk about that a little bit. Okay, it looks like it's more or less everyone's answered or close to answering. 67% say no and 33% say yes. So it's not bad. Okay, let me
You want me to go back?
Yeah. I don't know, does a poll show up over the presentation? Okay, so yeah, the next element of brand is defining your target audience. There is a quote here, I think this is from Seth Godin: "Don't find customers for your products, find products for your customers." Brand is really, who are you building your brand for? You have to identify that clearly and use it to develop your positioning in order to make your strategy that much more streamlined and effective. Some tips: don't try to be everything to everyone. Don't cast too wide a net. And then really, the more you know about your audience, the more you can concentrate on that best candidate to convert into a customer. So spending the time really researching your audience and defining who they are, building these audience personas. These audience personas are things like, there's a lot of information you can Google, but basically what you're doing is you're taking who your target audience is. There may be 3 or 4 subcategories of audiences, but knowing, where they spend their time, what motivates them, what do they look like, what do they like, what do they don't like, what are their pain points, what is the value that you provide to that target audience, and defining that.
So we have another school example, Atlanta Technical College. They worked with the city of Atlanta and the business community. And as many of you may know, it's very difficult to find people to hire for your jobs. So if you're hiring anybody right now, it can be kind of tough. And there are also a lot of people who have left high school, not gone on to college, and find themselves in dead-end jobs. And Atlanta Technical College and the city of Atlanta and the business community are like, okay, let's see if we can find this group that did not go to college, was in those dead-end jobs, and get them trained up so that we can hire them. So Home Depot was one of them, where they were hiring for their IT, like they needed IT workers. Delta needed people to be able to work on planes. They had a series of businesses. There was a bank, there was, and a couple others as the initial group. Each one of them helped develop coursework for students. So our job was to get students to actually come to Atlanta Technical College. So we put together a campaign, a branded campaign that basically you're in demand. We went in, we photographed a bunch of the students that were in different classes. We wanted to show that there is a brighter future. Like if you notice, all the kids are kind of looking up and to the right because it shows hope and this dream of getting to a better place. And then the messaging, you're in demand. You may feel like you're in a dead-end job, but you're actually needed, and you can make a lot more money by spending a couple years getting skilled up through Atlanta Technical College. So this poster campaign went to community centers and churches and all over kind of the area around the college. We also did MARTA buses and posters in like at the bus station. We had a packet that went out to partners, so nonprofits and schools and churches, to talk about the program, so that if someone came in and said, hey, I feel like I'm stuck, I would like to do more, someone would be able to talk intelligently about what is out there as an offer and what kind of careers you could get, like what kind of money you could get at the different careers that they're training for. And then if a student came in, we had a more in-depth, here's what you're looking at, here's a little bit about what it's going to take the next step. And they did a great job. Like Atlanta Technical College, if you're not familiar with them, they help single parents, they do daycare, they do a lot of support services to make sure that you can get through your classes and get out into the workforce in as short amount of time as possible. They're a great program.
Yeah, and what's really great about these examples, again, you know, knowing your audience, okay, these are real students. And so it's sort of this idea that, you know, some of this went in to areas around MARTA, you know, and available at different locations where, you know, people are out and about walking around, and they can recognize themselves in these photos. These aren't just stock photography, these are actual students. And so it seems achievable and relatable. In addition to that, you can see that they've also provided a lot of proof points. So going back to that first, that second element of good branding, which is creating value, there's a lot of proof points in here. Yes, there is value if you come here. You're going to, you know, these are the career, if you go on into this career, this is what you could be making. This is the graduation rate and career placement. All of these types of things are proof points. But in addition to that, there's a very consistent look and feel. So yeah, really knowing the audience, where they're going to be, what they're going to need, and what are they going to relate to. That's really what this speaks to. Okay, so creating consistency. I have a poll very quickly for you all. Let's see. Question is pretty straightforward. How visually consistent is your branding? We have a range from always consistent to never consistent. Okay, so it looks like what we're getting here is pretty much a tie between always consistent, usually consistent, and sometimes consistent.
In this little quote, the fact at the bottom, 65% of people are visual learners, meaning that they're more likely to remember an image than they are a brand name or slogan. This really speaks to consistency. If you think about Coca-Cola, that Coke red in that font is recognizable no matter what you do to it. If you see a little bit of that logo, you know who it is. That now they have a budget to be able to be hyper consistent, but if you're targeting an audience and you're where they're going to, if you know who they are and you're targeting them where they're going to be, then you can build that consistency for your audience as well.
And then, you know, remember that brands that retain consistent messaging and identity see a 33% increase in revenue. So always remember to embody that brand and tone of your company. It's vital, and everyone and everything is really an ambassador for your brand. Oh, I'm sorry, Isham, did you want to?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. We have a good example here of kind of how you can build up a brand with Literacy Action.
So Literacy Action is a nonprofit in Atlanta. They were formed in Ebenezer Baptist Church to help people become more literate. Their current, well, when we came to them, the typical person that was using their services was in their 40s to 60s, trying to learn how to read so that they could read to their grandchild. From a nonprofit standpoint, this is a challenge because as they're trying to fundraise, it's very difficult to say, hey, we're going to help. We need more money so we can help grandparents read to their grandchildren. It's not compelling. It doesn't provide the lift that a lot of the other nonprofits offer. Now, they also have a lot of services where they help people that have either dropped out of high school or left high school with not a great reading level. And they help with GED courses. They help upskill you so that you are a better reader. And we saw a lot of opportunity in being able to build a brand that attracts more of this younger audience to, which will in turn help attract more donors. So the nonprofits basically live and die based on whether they can get donations. So we started by changing the visual language and who is represented in the photography. When we came to them, they used a lot of classroom, like poorly shot classroom images. And if you have just dropped out of high school within the last 2 years and you came to Literacy Action and you saw really depressing classroom shots that were a mix of 18 to 65-year-old people, it didn't get you excited about wanting to go back to school. So what we wanted to do is show the opportunity that happens when you're able to read at a better level. So we started by finding people and that would represent success. We then, because we're going after a younger audience, we changed their color palette and their topography so that it would be more positive, more youthful. And we like this idea of reading as a stepping stone to higher education, which is a stepping stone to a higher job, which is a stepping stone to a better life. So we took this color palette and this topography, and then we took this idea of the circles and lines, where each step in your life is represented by a point. And then at one of those points is you've graduated, you got your GED, or now you can read, or these kinds of things. Next stepping stone is higher education, and so on and so forth. So this became the foundation for their brand. It's not just their logo. Like if you go back, these steps were their logo before. We updated the font, but we didn't really change the logo that much. What we did is we changed all the supporting elements. And then as those supporting elements are starting to be used together, we build better futures. And then we have a line to show someone who has gotten a better future and a testimonial around it. And then it ties into an article. So we use that line motif to help tell that story. And then by giving them all of the assets to build a nice brand and put things together, they're able to produce graphics so that when they have a webinar, they're like, oh, well, I've got these colors. I know how to adjust the photos. I know what photos to use. I know how to use, this one is white on a dark ground. That contrast allows it to stand out. It becomes the first thing you see. They're able to brand very large, but they're able to produce a lot of graphics with variety quickly. And I think that their designer is in-house. They were a year and a half out of school, and with a day of training, taking them through a style guide and giving them the assets, she's able to produce web graphics, social graphics, webinar presentations, all this kind of stuff very quickly. And without having to use external resources. So yeah, one of the big advantages to consistency and having that, like, here's our elements, is consistency becomes easier to produce with someone who is not as skilled. I think one of the big challenges I've seen with a lot of our clients in the past is they try to cut costs by hiring young designers to produce things. And when they go to the designer, they outline what they're looking for. That designer starts from scratch and produces something. Then that designer goes and gets a job. So they find another designer to do another thing who starts from scratch. Now you've got two things, like a PowerPoint and a sales deck or an ad that don't look anything alike. Spending the time up front to saying, these are the elements that go into making up our brand. You can give that to each designer and they have a starting point, and it becomes a lot easier for them to produce something. And what they produce, you can look at it next to your guidelines and say, does this fit or not? And if it doesn't fit, you can tell them exactly what needs to change in order to fit. And if it does fit, then you can put it out to market. So, yeah.
I think that's a great point that Isham brings up, is that being able to do that foundational work in the beginning, sometimes it feels like, wow, it can be a little more costly, but in the long run, it sets you up for success. And, it's kind of like one of those, the saying about marketing is that, you have to spend in order to make money. So being able to spend some in advance to set you up for success as you go out to market is going, to provide you with the value, just like the stat that we shared about the 33% increase in revenue when you have a consistent brand. So that's probably one of the biggest takeaways and greatest advice we can give new companies and small businesses, is to spend that time up front to at least get your brand elements to a point of professionalism and definition that, like Isham said, you can share that with anybody else who comes in, who at that point may not be as expensive, and they can actually do the production work. So I have a quick poll. Again, this is the last poll. So let's see. This is asking the question, do you have professional photography? And I don't know, Isham, while they're answering, if you wanted to talk a little bit about photography.
Yeah, this is one of those things about consistency. So making sure your products are shot well is important. And again, defining your photographic style is important. Once you have that style, then finding cheaper photographic resources, you can judge whether or not they can do the work. So you can ask them, can you produce something that looks like our style? And then two, you can make sure that everything flows in with everything else you're doing. So, yeah.
So we had about half and half, a little bit more, 56% said no and 44% said yes.
Yeah.
So our last element here of a good brand is building connection. And a strong brand allows customers to associate positive emotions and experiences to your product or service, making sure they come back more often. And Isham, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about this, this stat here.
Yeah, it seems that 75% of consumers think that companies should try harder to inspire brand loyalty. For you, this means that it's important to brand well, since people will see that you're making an effort. So our example is United Way of Greater Atlanta. We work with a lot of nonprofits. One of the things that we come across often is that nonprofits focus on the donors that provide the most amount of money. Those donors are typically over 50, and in a lot of cases, over 65, meaning they're retired. and they're not doing a good job of bringing in the next generation and shepherding them through, so that what they're finding is, as their audiences stop donating, either through, in a lot of cases, through death, that their overall donations plummet. And then they're scrambling and they're saying, oh, well, we don't want to focus on kids because kids don't give any money. But without doing that, they're not building any connection to the next generation. So with United Way, we worked with United Way National to develop this group called LINK, which is Lead Impact Network Change. It is focused on people entering the workforce up till about 30 years old. So in a lot of cases, they're new to an area. So they've moved to a new job in a new city. They are working with a lot like new people that they've never met before. They're single. So they're looking for connection to people. So the concept here was, how do we get a bunch of young people at a lot of large corporations to start volunteering together and building a connection that is shepherded by United Way. So instead of kind of being voluntold to give a certain percentage of your salary to a nonprofit, United Way started taking the approach of, let's create a lot of events so that people can come together, they can volunteer together, they can fundraise together, and they can build those deeper connections. So as part of that brand, we worked with this lady, Hine, to put together all these little felted elements that represent the different things that that United Way does. So they help with your health. They focus on financial literacy, homelessness, education. These are the things that the pillars of United Way. So we created these little elements to be able to talk to those different pieces. And it's funny, if anybody is familiar with the band They Might Be Giants, she does a lot of the animations for that, for those videos. So then this was the starting point for the campaign. And then we started mixing and matching. So Day of Innovation, we brought together several nonprofits around health and wellness. And we created a competition where different groups of people would create a fundraising concept for different nonprofits. And they were voted on at the end, and the winning nonprofit idea got funded. And a lot of what United Way does is they collect money and then distribute it to nonprofits that do the work. So this kind of fit within their model. These elements ended up being used across social media for all the events. And it was a way to be able, for United Way to be able to market. And if you're looking at any of their feeds, you would be able to tell which ones were for Link because they stood out from all the other stuff that United Way was doing. So in summary, Karen, you want to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry. I was on mute again. Yeah, in summary, if you want to move to the next slide.
Yep.
So your brand is your promise. Ensure that your audience knows what that promise is. A lot of times we forget and we start to think about brand as a logo. So hopefully with this presentation, you've seen some examples of how brand is more than logo. It's about how you present yourself, what you're saying, how you're connecting, what you believe in, and how people can connect to you as something more than just a logo, because it's important that people know you for who you are. The ways you can do that is really establishing your why, creating value. So establishing your why, going back to why it is you do what you do, not what you do. Creating value, providing those value propositions to your audiences so that they understand why they should believe in you. What makes you more successful or more unique or better than your competition. Defining your target audience clearly. Unless you know who your audience is, you don't really know who you're talking to and how best to speak to them. Creating consistency. Again, it's that 33% stat. Building consistency is an easy and effective way for you to be able to grow as a brand and to get more business. And then lastly, building connection, making sure that those connections are happening, not only with your brand, but between your customers. So being able to understand how they want to connect with their world, with each other, with you as a brand. Those are all of the types of things that you can be thinking of as you're building out your brand and really establishing yourself in the marketplace. So now we've come to the question and answer, the Q&A section. What we'd really like to know is if anybody has any questions, if anybody would like us to review any part of the presentation, let us know. If you don't have any questions today, certainly feel free to email us. We will be providing this presentation as well as our contact information after the presentation as a follow-up. We also have some on-demand video opportunities that you'll be able to watch the video with a code that will be sent out to you, along with accessing the presentation itself. And we also have a couple other opportunities that we'll have in that email. So please be on the lookout for that email. And it doesn't look like anybody has any questions.
Well, thank you so much, Karen and Isham. I do have one.
Oh, okay, great.
And that is about the tagline.
Okay.
So could you just kind of speak a little bit to, what a tagline should do, or how to arrive at what your tagline is and why?
There's a lot of different types of taglines. And if you go out there and do a search, you'll see that a lot of times they'll fall into different categories. You have taglines that are literal taglines that just say what you do. And you just want to make sure that everybody knows this is what you do, because maybe your logo or your brand is sort of not very
It's not clear what you do as a business.
Yeah, not clear. That's a literal tagline. You can have an inspirational tagline, kind of going back to that literacy action that we did, and sort of this idea of, or building better futures and things like that. Those are those inspirational taglines that make people, feel like they're part of something bigger. Then you can have taglines that differentiate yourself from your market. So, like the best of the best, or I think there's some car companies that do a really good job of that, in terms of really making sure that that they're premier, and the best of the best. And I think there's one other category I can't think of right now, but really, to me, it really comes down to, again, what's your why and who's your audience, and what you think you're going to be able to make the biggest impression with as it relates to your tagline. And taglines can also fall into themes. You can have campaigns or themes as well that, a tagline can change over time depending on what it is your objective is. So yeah, there's lots of ways at arriving at it. Shorter is better. Right? Yeah. Isham,
Awesome.
did you have any other thoughts on that?
Nope, I think you covered it all.
Okay.
Awesome.
I have
All
a
right, well, we
question.
did have the one question on, are we able to contact you for assistance? And the answer is yes. I think, are you gonna put your information in the chat, or it will
Yeah,
be?
I'll go ahead
am.
and do that
Okay.
now.
Yeah, I
Somebody
put
else
in,
have a question? Oh,
I
I
put our
did.
emails in there.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So, so as a small business, if you follow some of the steps that you guys have given about branding, and, you know, small businesses don't have like, oftentimes don't have a lot of time to like take years to build up their brand, you know what I mean? To where it's like the branding helps with making it really profitable. And so if you, you know, follow some of your tips and steps, then how long should it take to kind of see a difference in, you know, in your business once you put those branding elements into effect?
It depends on how you market it. So, like we're a branding and marketing company, and when we started, we are kind of all over the place. Our website looked one way, our presentations looked a different way. Most of our marketing is word of mouth, and most of how people learn about what we do is through our presentation, our proposals. So for us, we took our brand and our messaging and really tightened up our proposals, and it was pretty night and day. We went from winning under 30% of the jobs to closer to 50%. So it was pretty quick. If you aren't doing any marketing, then you know, then no one's ever going to see your brand. But if you are, it should be pretty quick for
Yeah.
everybody.
And I think, Aisha, is that you really want to think about and focus on the places where you know that you're going to convert the most customers. So wherever they live, whatever channel they're using, if you can just get that channel, what kind of do that well, and
Yeah.
do branding well in that. So it may be that you know, this is a proposal deck that you have. Well, you need to put everything into that proposal deck. Or it may be that you're on social media and Instagram, and it's you know, you've got to have that presence on Instagram. That's where you really want to make your focus and keep your focus. If it's Instagram, you know, you've got to have that photography. You've got to know what your look is, what your message is to people, what it says about you as a brand. You've got to make sure that it's really consistent. And you know, if it's a proposal, maybe the photography isn't as important as much as looking very professional, so that people trust you. So it really depends on your audience and what you're trying to say about yourself. So it can happen very quickly if you do it well. People will start responding. I think that, you know, we've worked with clients, MBDA for one, as it relates to new branding.
we can relate to that.
and new messaging and really consistent branding and consistent marketing. And you really do start to see those results because your customers and your clients start to see the value that you provide. They start to recognize it.
Google did some research around this too, and they put out a book called ZMOT, the Zero Moment of Truth. And what they were saying is that typically people need to see your brand 17 times in order to make a decision. So they were doing research around products in the grocery store aisle. So you need to see it over and over and over again before you're like, oh, I trust that brand, I'm going to buy it. And that's across multiple channels. So with brand consistency, people can start connecting all of those touch points together. But if every time they see your brand, it looks completely different, then they don't make that connection and they will never get to the 17 that they need or so to make that preference. That trust isn't there, that recognition isn't there. It's like every time they see you, it's the first time. So,
all right.
You know,
yeah.
No, I was just going to say that you can't overemphasize that, Aisha. You know, in our work, I can't count the amount of small business brands I see, whether it's their LinkedIn page, their Instagram, their website, their packaging, if they're selling products. And I can tell you that it may take a little time and even money up front to get it, but it does make all the difference, you know, because a lot of times as soon as we go to a brand of a company, even it could be great, the company could be great, but what we see is what we think about the company immediately. So I just wanted to say, I can't overemphasize how important it is to try to put as much time and effort in up front, as Karen and Isham have said, and then reap the benefits on the back end.
And it's tough. Like I realize it's tough because usually people don't think of like something comes up every few months. So I need this presentation or I need this ad to go out. And everything is so scattered, and people's brands, usually when you start a company, that first couple years, everything gets very piecemealed because you're like, you do a big effort to put out a website, and then you might not do anything for 6 months, and then you need a print ad, and then you might be a couple months and you're like, oh, I'm going to start emailing. And then there'll be a point in which everything looks different. And then you're going to run into issues where it takes too long to produce anything, because every time someone brings anything creative to you, you're like, well, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. It's like you have to rethink everything every time. So there gets to be a point, if you know your audience and you know what you're selling and you plan on marketing, then spend the time to define your brand at that point, whenever that happens.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was interesting that you guys said, like, some people think that branding is just their logo, and that is very true.
yeah, we end up, we have a lot of companies that will come to us and say, we need a new website. And what we realize they're trying to do with their website is they're trying to solve their brand. And the website is the only place that they're currently marketing. So we end up spending a lot of time trying to define who they are, who their audience is, what they're trying to say, so that what ends up being their only marketing piece actually is branded to help sell what they do. And I don't know if it's because people don't know enough about branding to say, I need to spend the time and effort on this, or if they're trying to just save money and try to solve everything at once. I think it's a combination of both. Yeah.
It is.
So yeah, a lot of what we've ended up doing is changing the way that we work with clients and saying, okay, well, we're going to solve your brand problems and educate them as to why and how, and take them through that process. So.
Okay, well, we're over time, and we want to thank everybody for joining us today for this marketing B2 consumer, business to consumer marketing series. I have here on the screen the upcoming series. As you can see, next week we have the final for both our B2B and B2C. Well, no, that's next week. We have the B2B, the end of the B2B marketing series, and I think the week after that it's the last of the B2C marketing series. Is that correct?
Yeah, with tools and technology next, we begin next week. Yep.
Okay. Is that the beginning of the next series, or is that?
That is the end of the B2B series. Will be next week, and then the following week we'll have the last for the B2C series.
The B2C, the marketing tools and technology. Yep. So great. And then also do note that tomorrow and next week we're finishing up our finance series as well. So we really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Isham, can you make me the host again?
Oh yeah, I can. Did that one pretty well.
It did. Good. Great. All right. So this is wrapping up pretty nicely.
Yeah, we still have, I think, 7 attendees.
Yeah, they probably stepped away. I'm removing them.
Oh,
It's not like Zoom where you can just expel everyone.
You have to go, you have to go one by one.
Yeah, I miss Zoom, not Zoom, WebEx so
WebEx.
much.
I
uh-oh.
wonder why they decided not to use WebEx anymore.
I don't know, but I think you can get like just like individual, like an individual.
But it's not supported by Georgia Tech.
No.
Yeah, and it doesn't make any sense why they don't let you do all. I
Yeah,
mean, especially when you have so many.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Probably
Everyone's
money.
gone now.
It's probably a function of paying for the licenses or something like that.
Yeah,
And the
maybe.
support.
Probably.
Yeah,
I have
well,
to go to another meeting, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Donna. Thanks for, yeah, we
Have
brought
you
it.
guys started your marketing reviews?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a great
Okay.
one yesterday with
Good.
West Side Creamery.
Oh, nice. Deborah,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, they're great. They're awesome.
She's fun. She's
Yeah.
awesome.
Awesome, awesome. And they
Yeah,
make
got
great
some-
ice cream and wonderful cakes. So.
We haven't tried it yet,
Oh
so
boy, it's
that's on our list.
It's amazing. It really
Everyone
is.
says so, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
And then
guys,
we
gotta run.
talked to another guy yesterday too, but he had to run. He was
Okay.
he wanted to reschedule, but yeah, we've got a few on the list. Thanks,
Cool.
Donna.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks.
Just-
Bye.
Yeah, this was good. Thank you guys. It's always
Yeah, so
yeah.
the polls, at least they worked. So
Yeah,
it's
that was
kind of
cool.
like a matter, and it says on there afterwards, I wanted to ask you guys, it says share.
Oh, what happened? Did she kick herself out or what?
She's down in Tallahassee, so it's possible that
Oh, she was telling us that the internet there is kind of weird.
I'm glad it happened after the presentation.
Oh, we forgot to stop recording. I'll have to clip this part off.